Joining me now for more is forensic psychiatrist Dr. Ziv Cohen. And Dr. Cohen, there is a pattern of misogyny amongst a lot of these mass shooters. In fact, Bloomberg did an analysis showing of 749 mass shootings from 2014 to 2019, 60% were either acts of domestic violence or committed by men who had a record of domestic violence. What is the link here, in your opinion?
Well, I think the linkage really is violence. So when you look at individuals who are violent, they have what we call antisocial traits, which is that they tend to have low empathy. They try to exert control on the environment around them using force and power. And so if you take an individual like that and you look at them in the context of an intimate relationship, they're going to be likely to transact that way, to behave that way in an intimate relationship, try to assert power and dominance and essentially be abusive. And they're also going to have the propensity to do that in other aspects of their life. So I think that the linkage is not a direct one. It's a rather loose one, but it's based on character traits that these individuals have.
And Dr. Cohen, so many Americans are exhausted by what frankly feels like a sick kind of Groundhog's Day. And one soccer player actually expressed how so many are feeling right now. Let's go ahead and play that quickly.
I'm actually going to keep this really brief and not answer any questions about the game. I'm not joking. I'm sick to my stomach about what's happened in Illinois today, and I think we need to talk about gun control. You guys can write about the game if you want, but I don't really give a shit. It's a sick, vicious cycle that keeps happening over and over, and we're doing nothing about it, and it makes me sick.
Well, that LA Galaxy midfielder was specifically talking about frustration over a lack of legislation. But politics aside, his anger and this feeling of helplessness, as we hear about another mass shooting, is pretty much universal. And I want to bring you in here because in the case of the tragedy that was thwarted in Virginia, we do see just how powerful one person can be when they see something and they decide to act. In your experience, what are the clear warning signs that we need to look out for, and when is it serious enough for someone to actually say something?
Absolutely. So what we think about is what we call the pathway to violence. So individuals who are going to commit an act like this typically engage in planning, which is far in advance. So as they go on that pathway to violence, they're fantasizing about such a crime. They begin to investigate how they can carry out that crime. Then they actually plan, and finally they execute. And on that pathway to violence, there's typically what we call leakage, being that they express some of these ideas either to friends or others or through online posts. And so with someone like Cremo, it certainly begins to look like it fits a pattern of potential planning based on what's been reported in the media, and also on leakage, where there's these very active engagement with online fora. So what we need is community surveillance. If you are engaged in social media and you see something that's strange, you really have to think about reporting it to law enforcement or potentially reporting it to the FBI. But I think we also need engagement from tech, from big tech. So for example, as a forensic psychiatrist, I evaluate sex offenders, and there are numerous sex offenders who have been apprehended because tech is using AI, artificial intelligence, to actually probe their servers and see if someone's holding child pornography, let's say, in their Google Drive. And so there really is no reason why we shouldn't be using artificial intelligence to also probe social media posts for people who are talking a lot in a certain scary way about engaging in mass violence. And then finally, we need to give law enforcement the tools. We've talked about red flag laws. But red flag laws really work after the fact. If someone has a weapon and they are engaging in scary talk, the police can come and potentially confiscate those weapons. But what about an individual who hasn't yet purchased weapons? So I think we really need coordination from law enforcement, big tech, and other institutions like the mental health community to try to close as many loopholes as we can and prevent these attacks before they happen.
Absolutely. And addressing age specifically, Dr. Cohen, a lot of these mass shooters in recent years have been men under the age of 22. Can you speak to that? Is there any explanation for this pattern?
Well, the easiest explanation is that violence is typically carried out by men, and the younger the men are, the more violent they are. So in fact, men age out of violence. By the time a man is over the age of 50, they're much less likely to be violent. So I think, again, the connection here is a rather loose one. It's simply young men, high testosterone levels, less impulse control. Young men are not safe drivers by and large, and they're also more likely to engage in violence. Another factor, though, of course, is that we are seeing in these mass shootings young men who are alienated, angry, lack of connections in the community. And when they go on this path of violence, they've essentially decided that the way they're going to deal with their emotional problems is by unleashing mass violence. So we really have to figure out how we can engage young men in the community so that they don't go down this path.
It's an insightful answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Ziv Cohen. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.